That's not so obvious. So yes, they got a grant, yes, they got the first seed funding, but do they have people around them which will actually make them collaborate with pharma? That's more important, and that's basically I don't know how it happened, but right now we have, as I walked over here, I had one pharma customer call me and saying, okay, we're going to give you 3 contracts instead of 1. You know, I said that in the auditorium, but by now, after 5 years, we're starting to pick up. And it's a classical one, you know, with my 50, okay, at the time I was 46 when I left this big multinational. With all that experience, everybody said, well, you're going to pull it off in 2 or 3 years. The standard is 5 years. It takes 5 years to go through the motions and pick up. When you enter a startup, consider that. Yes, you can be part of the very exciting young dream, but you're on your way down. Probably. It's not what you believe, and it's not what you should. You know, it's happening, and you have to be ready to accept that. At the same time, I mean, the government is not going to give you grand jobs. You don't have the money. So set your mindset to deal with these things. But getting into a startup can be the most rewarding thing. I mean, the people that I work with, my colleagues, the technicians, the postdocs, we have one PhD who's actually doing her PhD in our company. I mean, they really love their job. We're not paying them a lot. But they love their job because, I mean, they get to conduct their own clinical trials with horses. It's, you know, you are going to do those trials. It's not me. I just say yes or no. You know, you get so much opportunity if you step into these startups. If you step into a pharma company, you have no idea where you are. Yes, within your little research group, but what the impact is of what you do versus the big dream, you're probably never going to experience it. We were talking from dream to business, right? Where am I? Questions?
So I have a question regarding the process of some medication being produced. You have the initial idea, then you have the investment from those ideas, right?
No.
Or
No, it took you at least 2 years to develop your idea into something that you can present.
yeah, so, sure. You have your initial investment, then you present your idea, then you get funds, so you can research that further, so you have the final product.
No.
No.
After the first, say, 5 years of real research, I mean, at the level that you are currently operating, doing PhDs, which is called real research, either applied or fundamental, it takes another 5 years to actually develop it into a prototype, something which more or less works. From that point on, you stop research. You go into development. And development is really a different discipline. It's no longer about the ICT gene 1 knockout mice tau inhibiting blah blah blah. It's about repeating things and making small changes. It's almost boring. But if you get into that game and you're good at it, at managing it and making it effective, it's the way forward. So you were saying research and then into the final product. As a researcher, you're not going to see the final product.
No, I'm talking about the medicine itself. I'm talking about this because unfortunately I have psoriasis. I have all the 4 types, and the medicine has already been developed. They have experimented, but it's stalled now because the only information I saw is that the research, not the research, the production is too expensive and no one wants to invest in it. So that's why I was asking, what kind of process do you still have to go after? After the testing? You want to have the production? It's only after testing?
No, no, what actually happens, it's like this. You develop your idea, you test it on lab animals, usually. Interesting new development is that people can actually work on eggs now. Especially with siRNA, you can do a lot of testing on eggs without harming animals. But eventually you get into lab animals. That's a process of about anywhere between 2 to 5 years. Then you have your preclinical study, which is actually saying, okay, if I do this dose, I get that result in an animal. This is my model. That's another 1 to 2 years. Then, within those 2 years of preclinical, you start developing your regulatory file. And the regulatory file is an enormous amount of paper, and it's really a different world. I come from a different planet, and they come from a different planet. But boy, I need this woman who does this for me. She is so good. She really understands the process. She's currently driving the company in terms of what we are doing. Because we have to do this, we have to check that, we have to do toxicity, we have to do dose response, we have to do scale up, blah, blah, blah. All those things. And they have nothing to do with research. We're not changing the molecule, we're not changing the formula. It's this and nothing else. But it's 2 years and another 2 million, which goes into building the regulatory file. Then you go to either the Portuguese local government or you go to the EMEA, the European FDA, and you ask for approval. And then they start asking all sorts of smart questions you've never thought about. So basically, when you start your preclinical, also start talking to the EMEA. Because they're going to help you with all those difficult questions. They're going to help you rethink or improve what you're actually doing. So you've done those 2 years. You get your IND, which can be anywhere between half a year to 2 years. Which you're twiddling your thumbs and hoping that somebody's going to say yes. You get your IND, then you can go into your first patient. And depending on what the molecule is and what the disease is, it can be the first 5 patients or the first 20 patients typically. It's called a preclinical one, it's a safety study. And the safety study is basically with people who say, okay, I'm a volunteer because this is going nowhere. And they actually, they get injections and people just hope that they don't die or that they don't. You know, there are safety indications, but that's really when it's up in the air. When you've passed that stage, you start your clinical trial one, which, depending on the disease, in the case of osteoarthritis, the way we do it, we already need 50 patients. If it's for a breakthrough product which nobody has ever seen before, it can be 5 patients. Or for cell therapy, it's typically very low numbers. What you then have to start thinking of, so you're doing your clinical trials and your clinical 2 and 3 and big. At the same time, you have to think, well, if I can make one of these, how can I make 100 of these? If I can make 100 of these, how do I make 10,000 of these? If I can make 10,000 of these and you're in the vaccination business, you have to start thinking 10 million. So even though you're interested in the research and the effect of the molecule, as early startup team of this company, all of a sudden you're getting involved in, so how big is the floor space? How many concretes do we have to, you get into a whole different field. By that time it's no longer research, it's really, and not even product development anymore, it's really about manufacturing and regulatory and clinical. And that's when, this afternoon I presented these 3 companies. It was a natural process, I didn't think it up when I started. The IP was there, and the networks, and then we established our technology platform that we can actually do this 100 times a day. And now we're at the point where we start clinical trials. But in that clinical trial company, there are people who have experience with preclinical, clinical trials and regulatory filings. They don't know how to make this, and they shouldn't, because they're a trial company. So for every phase of the company, going through all these steps, you need different people and different competencies. And as an inventor, and sometimes it's sad, but as an inventor, you may actually end up in the quality assurance department, running HPLCs. You should have left before that time. Or maybe you love the company. Or they bought your soul because they gave you so many shares at such a low price and you're still waiting for it to happen, which sometimes does.
Just one question. If you're developing your product, you're in phase 1 and 2 of the clinical clinical trial, and now you have to scale up your production process. Do you need more regulatory things, more safety tests again when you are using your new facilities with the
Yep.
bigger?
Yep.
I heard about that.
Once they're in, you can never get rid of them, these regulatory guys and girls. And they become bigger and bigger, and it's actually one of the biggest cost factors in your company. The regulatory and the quality assurance, quality control. That becomes very big. By that time, I'm out. I don't have the patience to look at all these things and try to understand all these, but it's so important. I mean, if you think about the products which were injected into babies in the 50s or pregnant women, those people should be shot on the spot right now. Who did that? So yes, we've developed, but in terms of innovation and entrepreneurial and pioneering and adventure, it's very bureaucratic. This is where pharma is very expensive because of the scale of it. But some people love it, and there are big challenges to do it effectively and efficiently because it's so very expensive, that phase of product development. From a technology and from a business management process development point of view, there's so much to be gained. Because people just copy each other and they just hire 600 quality control people. 600 to produce this? And everybody's checking off everything. You get pages like this to fill this file. 20 points to check. 20 points to check how to fill this file. Standard operating protocol. That's the sort of mess you get yourself into as an inventor. Okay. Question?
I would like to hear you, but what we saw along the way is that actually there's a big gap. And it's that between. So,
Between what?
there we were in the drug discovery, there we were with the 3 lead molecules, and there we were with no money to do nothing else with them. And we wanted to sell, we wanted to license, we wanted to partner, or whatever came. And all the big pharma that approached us, they did, and they said, we don't want it until you do the preclinical.
And what will they say when you come into preclinical?
They,
We'd like to see your clinical data.
exactly. It's like, it's of course it will be more valuable, but actually, where are the companies that can do the middle part? Because we were a small biotech, we could only do that much, we didn't have more resources. And
Well, if you invented the next cure for diabetes too, then
it wasn't diabetes because it was
then-
neuronal inflammation, for example.
no, but if it's breakthrough, I've seen one poster where I think if this is true what she's saying, and if it actually works, and that she didn't prove yet, yeah, this is breakthrough. It's about Alzheimer and tau.
She's my master's student.
That's great work. If it's actually true, any company will snatch it out of your hands. But it may not be that true. It may be 80% true, and that's where the companies say, you do the other 20%. The companies are changing their minds, and there are smaller companies who are more eager to partner because they have no opportunity to do it themselves, or to just buy you at 100 million if you were right. GSK was just like, oh, 100 million. Yeah.
But we found is really that they say that they are changing their business model, but actually I think they're still missing the. And I'm wondering, you got to preclinical with your
Yeah.
product.
We're now
So
getting ready for
preclinical and
clinical.
clinical. And, how did you get that funding?
It's a very important point. There are 2 points here. Because VCs are either empty or extinct, or they only want to do IT. Remember that, IT, I have to come back to that. You have to partner. And basically with the veterinary department, who just finished the project for Boehringer Ingelheim, they said, oh, well, we've got all the models running with these horses, but we're doing oral. So let's do injections. And they were already doing hyaluronic injections in horses. So they said, you know, give it to us. A bit of luck and a bit of networking and talking. And people sharing a passion. And I mean, this lady who was doing it, she was just a whirlwind of energy. The woman could not be stopped, and she just, oh, here, give it to me, I'll do it next week. Boom! Next week, it was in the knee of a horse. She just did it. Fundamental joy. Fundamental joy. If you run into those people, oh, cherish them. Cherish them. And you don't have to offer shares, you don't have to offer money. It's like they are fascinated about that need. And that's their joy. So if you can funnel into that, if you can partner, you can do a lot of things. The guy who's doing the regulatory charged me 5,000 euros. Peanuts! Peanuts! But we like each other, you know? We're not lovers. We like each other and we grant each other. He knows that if we get through the preclinical, I will give him the contract for the regulatory. No, he's got 2 million. It's his investment, but he's also just fascinated. Would it actually work? Can you guys pull this off? What happens then is that the orthopedic surgeon who's been working on cartilage regeneration for his past 20 years, he's now saying, I think we should talk about pain. They said, well, I said, give it to me, I'll put it in the first patients. I said, well, we didn't do a clinical trial yet, or applied it. He said, no, but if I do a safety study for grandpa who's going to get a new knee, I can inject it 1 hour before I take his knee out. What? Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. That's called medical exemption. A doctor can decide on his own, if he's checked all the things, if he's asserted himself that it's safe. And a horse knee is more sensitive than a human knee. That's a piece of the information. We've got all these scientific papers proving that. If you build up that case, he can do that. And as he's done that, so 1 hour in, 2nd hour knee out, new knee in, then he can actually say, okay, now I'm going to do it 1 day in advance. Then I can do it 1 week in advance. Then I can do it 1 month in advance. We didn't do an IND. Are we doing rocket technology? No. Getting this right is 3 years of hard work. And by the way, the temperature is rising and this is starting to gel. We were making it at 37 degrees or 36 for the eyeball and for the intervertebral disc and for cancer. And then only somebody said, well, what happens if you swim? Yeah, your knee goes down to 28 degrees in cold water. So it would mean that the gel would sort of would become liquid again. So we had to restructure the polymers, and now we can make, and those were 2 patents that we actually filed. We can make it between 25 degrees and 42 degrees. You don't want to go much higher. And we can increment it by half a degree and control that within 5% of half a degree. Fabulous. But my polymer people never had to think about that until they posed that question. What about a need for somebody who's swimming? You know, all this innovation comes from that. Is it the new therapy? Of course not. We're using generic drugs, triamcinolone, celecoxib, what else? Meloxicam. It's really old stuff. And then you can buy it for 1,000 euros per kilo, and you can treat 100,000 patients. And even Indian companies will give you lower prices. They give you the best price. You know, it's that sort of drugs that we're working with. But you know, swallowing 3 pills a day. Has anybody heard about the Vioxx scandal?
In the stomach?
Vioxx. No, it was people getting heart attacks because they were taking Vioxx. So Merck had to pull it away. They invested more than $1 billion in the whole thing. But it's the same molecule. But it's very effective on inflammatory suppression. And so we're using that molecule, and we're locating it here in the knee. And the total dose that we do over 30 days versus the oral dose is a difference of 8,000 times. 8,000 times less drugs in your system. Who wouldn't want that? Is this innovation? Is this innovation? Is it rocket science? Are you being trained to do these things? No, you're being trained to invent and to create. But if you start thinking about the The patient says, you know, I've got pain on my knee and I can't keep my garden, I can't go shopping with my wife or my husband, can't lift my... If you can solve that, you've done something great. And that sells at 700 million a year. So this is our innovation. And it takes some persistence, and sometimes you're out of money or out of luck, and sometimes it just picks up. But join those companies. Those companies are great to be because you yourself are having a major impact on what's happening with that company. And you've experienced it, and it gives you a degree of frustration. I can sense that. But try it
Because
again.
work was good.
But try it again.
That's not my place. Molecules aren't mine.
Yeah. No, but I mean, failure is, I mean, the Americans say failure is not an option. Yet the Americans are very good at repeating and doing it again, and walking against the wall and stepping back again and climbing over the wall. You have to be prepared to do that and experience that. The government is not going to solve your problem. Forget it.
You'd like to remind me about IT.
Yeah. Because you don't have a large pharma industry here in Portugal, as the previous speaker was speaking, I thought, hang on, Borut from Slovenia, from Ljubljana, he's a friend of mine. He was constantly talking to me about that he wanted to set up this IT company in healthcare. I had no clue what he was talking about. And we were good friends, we talked about all sorts of cultural, anthropological, philosophical problems, but what he was trying to say, I could not fathom. At a certain point I said, Brute, shut up, just do it, don't ask me. And 3 months later he came back with a website. What this website does is when you have your first heart attack, I hope you don't, but as you sit here, about 5 of you will. As you have your first heart attack and you survived and you're sitting there with the cardiologist, he said, well, okay, you're back and we give you this, we give you that, and think about this, think about that. Information goes in and goes out. You're in a total different state of mind. So they give you books to read. You're not going to read. You're happy you survived. Your husband or your wife will probably read the book, but you yourself are in complete denial of what happened to you. You thought you were unbeatable, and yet you were lying on a bed without even knowing what was going on. So people deny what's going on. And apparently most of the patients who've been in a heart attack situation do not hold on to the therapy that's being offered. And this is life-threatening. So it's where he actually said, I need to find a way of communicating with people who are in a different state of mind. And he actually did that through IT and training and very simple graphics, animations. Making it very simple. And not having the intimidating white coat of a doctor. You can switch it on yourself. You can log into your own account and you get the information that the doctor said, this is what you need to do when you get at home. But when you were sitting in that doctor's room, you weren't reading anything.
What about the old people?
So, the point here is that with, I think, 10,000 euros, he built a website with great animations, really professional, solving a real problem. And he was asking my permission or my blessing, and I just couldn't understand it because I'm too dumb. He just shut up and do it. And after 3 years, he just did it. Within 3 months, he came back. So now he's traveling all over Europe. And this is where the IT investors will love you. Because it's so simple, it's fast cash around, it's hard to protect, and the next version has to be made, and so on and so on. It's, you know, it's swinging. But then you come with your next growth factor or your tau inhibitor. Oh, bloody hell, here we go. You want money for 12 years salaries? I don't think so. So, you know, when you think about healthcare, and I've seen 2 posters which are talking about IT-based systems. They're not talking about formulation and patients, and they're just talking about a media and that you adapt the flow of oxygen into the bioreactor, and you do that with all sorts of intelligence. Great. Simple. So you may actually look at your own, what you're doing, and start not thinking in a product, but in a service. Services are fast. They, it works or it doesn't. So you can demonstrate that something works. Diagnostics is fast. So, of course, I mean, if the love of your life is drug discovery, then by all means, that's it. But these people who are optimizing fermentation through intelligence algorithms, you can do that for drug delivery as well. How to choose the best. And this is what I meant with IT. Because then all of a sudden, the development from the idea, the algorithm, to demonstrating it is a matter of half a year. And not bloody 5 years. Or more. So, if the surgeons are not there, if the horse doctor is not there jumping up and down for your idea, then think differently. It's probably in your hands or under your seats. The idea is there. You have to look from a different perspective. Or you can look, you don't have to do anything. You can look in a different way and see, can I make a service out of this? Yeah.
Just a small idea. For example, some old people, they never know that what's the email is, what's the internet is. How you want to serve them?
Yeah, they're lost generation. You're asking me?
Yeah.
No, you have to be smart. I don't need to be smart. You solve that problem.
Yeah, exactly. For a regional, for a specific region, that there is a problem like this, that they want to inform the dangers actually in Iran there is a program for the diabetics, and they want to inform they use SMS center for just to inform them what you have to do for diabetes. Just a small application you can develop in a web framework, and it's possible.
Yep.
There are a lot of diseases like this. For example, the heart attacks, the guys with the cancer. Just to make a service.
You can think of services
Yeah.
rather than products, and being in the fundamental molecular biology, you can step out of that. Look from a distance. Go to a Fada bar and drink a few beers, and then walk home and not take the taxi home, and think about what service can we come up with. I just loved that yesterday. We ate just simple sardines and then went into the Fada bar. Actually, I saw this documentary movie about Fado, sorry. And they were doing this beautiful crossover between hip hop, dance, and Fado. It was actually in Porto. I mean, Lisbon is probably too sophisticated to do these things, but in Porto they were making these crossovers. And sorry, that's obvious. But yeah, that was great. Innovation is on.
I just have a question on that. You did mention about first taking some good amount of experience in the industry and gaining skills. But once you decide to start your own company with a few colleagues, the protection that you get in a company in terms of if in case you probably are going a little bit in the wrong direction, there are a lot of people around you to help you, or let's say if you want some market analysis, there are some departments who have so much of skills and resources and computers and databases to mine and make a report and give it to you. So now that you're on your own, I mean, is it some kind of a culture and situation shock that takes place?
Yeah. I was doing my own web-based research. Me, CEO of a company of 200 people. What's the arthritis? You do that. Very rapidly, you go from culture shock into, okay, now I just have to do it.
Recently there was a movie called Puncture, which I think it was released somewhat last year. It was about a young guy who was trying to help an entrepreneur in these safety syringes that once you finish injection, you just push the syringe a little further and the needle just automatically breaks, so that there are no these needle accidents in hospitals.
Sure.
But for that entrepreneur to really get his product into the market, he had to go through so many associations who had strong lobbies with policymakers that they said if you come into the market, then our drugs for HIV and HPV will be affected, because you're kind of destroying the market, so we will not allow you to come in. It's kind of inspired from a real story. So is it really true that if there is really an innovation that can eradicate a lot of diseases, but because there's already an existing set of businesses and infrastructure built on that problem, that they will keep their best interest and lobby with the government to ensure that your innovations don't come to the market and
There you will run into that. And the point there is that, do you want to do everything yourself? So if you would have gone to one of the big needle companies and said, we've got this great innovation, and they would have accepted it, you wouldn't have run into that problem, because the entrepreneur is typically somebody who says, no, I do my own thing. If you can network, if you can partner with a company at the right time, not too early and not too late, then you won't run into this resistance.
actually
And just because you have to be at 7,
Yes.
and if any of you wants to do any particular question to you, private one, so
I'm here.
it's 5 minutes, so please.
All it takes is a beer and a fado.
Yeah, so well, thank you. Please wait.